Well, good evening, everyone. The time being 7 o'clock, we will begin our meeting. Welcome back after an unusual summer. We did get to spend a couple of meetings together as a board to continue business. And thank you, Manny, and the library team for all of your work to reopen the library in the midst of the pandemic. And great to have the community back engaged and taking advantage of the services that the team provides. So we will start off with our agenda. Unless there's any comments any of the board want to make before we start in, because we haven't gathered in a bit. Getting some interesting squeaking in the background.
Sorry, that's my dog.
Oh,
I'm gonna mute
hold
myself.
on. Public input is next.
Public squeaking input. Okay.
Squeaky wheel. All right, well, we move to public input. Is there any public input for today's meeting? Here's Catherine.
Hey.
Hey, Catherine. Do you have audio going there? Can you hear us? Oh, can you hear us, Catherine?
Yes.
Okay, great. We just started just a moment ago. We've just done public input, of which there was none, and we're going to move on to approval of our two minutes from July 8 and July 21. Any comments on the minutes from either of those two? Let's start with July 8. Any comments on July 8 minutes? Do you have a motion to approve? Motion by just about everybody. We'll go with Christine, seconded by Kevin. All in favor? Okay. Great. Moving on to the minutes from July 21st. Any comments or questions on the July 21st minutes? There being none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Penders, seconded by Catherine. All in favor of the July 21st minutes? All right. 4-0-1. Catherine, abstaining?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, 5. There we go. All right. Great. Let's move on to correspondence. Manny?
So in your packet, there is a memorandum from a law firm, Connolly and Rooney, and this is in regards to the Alan Grigsby Trust. The trust was created by Alan S. Grigsby, who has recently passed, and in the trust contains a provision for a $2,000 legacy to each of the addressed charities, and one of the charities listed was the Boyden Library. So that'll be added to the Grigsby Trust.
Very good. Any questions?
So I guess my only question was, Manny, you have the trust documents themselves on that? Because I know the letter is, we just have the letter, so we don't have any of the underlying conditions attached to it as I saw it.
Yes. Yeah, we have it. As a matter of fact, when I get to the director's report, I'll bring up the update on the Trustee Binder.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Excellent. All right. Any other correspondence, Manny?
No, that's it.
All righty. Janice, the Friends report.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Janice.
So we had our meeting last week, and Bernadette did her treasurer's report, and we are finally starting to bring some more money in. Like June and July were very light months, but in August we brought in over $1,000. That's mostly from we have money from the bookshop coming in. We have book rentals coming in. We had some memorials, but we also, we had bought a block of zoo tickets for Southwick Zoo, and we have sold almost, I think all but 17 out of a block of 50. So they're going really well. So we're going to buy another block because they don't expire. And we just figured it's a good thing, even though they close the end of October, people can buy them for next year too. So that was good that was really taken off. The other thing is we talked about potentially trying to do some kind of little book sale in November. We have have to think about that, but I was, how we could make it happen. But I was thinking that maybe what we should do is actually do a little survey of the patrons to find out if people would even come to it. And if they came, because we can't put out everything. We'd have to have a very specialized small sale. So if we did it, what would they be interested in? So they would know the kinds of genres of books that they were most interested in buying, so that we could do that. So I haven't talked to Manny about that yet. That was just an idea I had this weekend, but we were thinking, even if we don't have it, but it'll at least give us an idea if people are anxious to get back to a book sale, or they'll just be like, no thanks. Don't want to go through all the work of planning something that nobody's going to attend. And we were thinking of doing it by appointment and stuff like that. So and that was about all I had.
Any questions for Janice?
Okay.
All right, thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
All right, on to professional staff reports. Manny, anything you want to highlight from the team's reports?
So this is Margie's last report from the children's department. So very sad times. But during this summer, with the community room, everything being shut down, basically, Margie was excellent creating programs via Zoom for our community. So I definitely want to thank her for that. I really wish her last summer reading program would have went out with a bang with the teddy bear picnic, but maybe we can think about something for next year, because I know she loved that program so much. The Kraft Family Partners, her name is Lindsay. She stopped by the library and with this huge box of Patriots squishy footballs and stickers and all this other swag to give to the children. So Margie has that, and she's been and everyone in the children's department has been distributing that to our local families. So that was great. Now, one thing that Margie did was she was the author of the column that would be in the Foxboro Reporter. So now with Margie leaving, Kathy Bell Harney has stepped up to the plate, and she's going to be taking over doing that. Now, when the new person comes on, maybe they'll want to do it, or maybe Kathy Bell Harney will be fine with it and we'll continue on doing it. But that'll be happening once Margie leaves. Her last day is the 24th of September. So I know the paper had stopped by, and Jury Love did an article for Margie. So, which she's been here 31 years, so she definitely has a lasting legacy. The other thing Kathy Bell Harney had to do is basically cancel and block our community room and fuller room till the end of the year. I don't see programs happening anytime soon. The community room is still our quarantine, and that's going to continue for who knows. I don't know any library that's actually having programs indoors. Some libraries had a story time, a socially distanced story time outside, but especially when it'll be getting colder soon, there's not going to be any indoor programs for a while. Unfortunately, because we were really excelling with that. But, when this is all behind us, we're going to be better than ever and welcoming our patrons with open arms. Reference is still busy. Library hasn't been too busy. And I'll give a report when we get to the coronavirus, COVID-18. But Tim still is fielding questions, reference questions, answering questions via phone or patrons coming in. He, during the summer, had a huge shifting project that he was working on and completed. And Suzanne has been continuously purchasing items and cataloging all the materials that are coming in. After the first of the year, it's really busy. That's when we can spend money for our current fiscal year. So she's been working on that and her crew when it comes to cataloging all those items, getting them out there for our patrons. So our professional staff, as well as the entire staff, they've been team players throughout this whole ordeal, and they've been fantastic and couldn't do this without them. So
Team's doing a great job. Appreciate the work and managing through difficult situation, but great to see patrons of the library again, even in reduced numbers. Any questions for Manny on the professional staff reports? No? Okay. Move on to the financial reports. Anything you want to highlight in the financial reports, Manny?
Yeah, just one thing, and this is for Catherine. If she sees, July 2020 and our network and information is already at 81%, that's because right after the first of the fiscal year, sales will send out their invoices for their membership fees, everything that comes along with sales, the hosting fee. And so we basically, that line item is usually depleted or just about depleted by July or August. So that's why you'll see, by August, we're already at 84% in that line item. That just, everything gets spent. Same thing when it comes to the adult databases. They renew every year. So that's why you'll see that. That's already at 98.3%. So those are the things of note that stick out. But that's the norm. That happens each and every year.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any questions? All right. Manny, on to your director's report, please.
Okay. A lot of Zoom meetings. That's basically my report. So I'm part of a statewide director group that meet every Wednesday, and we'll be meeting tomorrow. And we've had members of the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners and members of the Massachusetts Library System. It's basically a time for library directors just to meet virtually and just sometimes, some libraries are ahead of the curve. I think we're one of those libraries that we're ahead, but there are still many libraries, even locally, that still haven't opened, nor have their town halls have opened. So it's a time for directors to ask, hey, did this happen? Has it been busy? Have you had any confrontations with anti-mask people or something? It's things like that. So it's a good time to, sometimes there's venting, because it does get frustrating, but it's a great group. It's from all over the state. We usually have about 30 to 40 directors on, always there to help one another. Last week, I chimed in quite a bit when it came to, our situation here. They were curious about it. So we meet every week. And then sales, we meet, it's basically the same thing, but it's just the sales directors. So we still hold our monthly meetings, but again, it's another time for us to get together, just to kind of have any questions when it comes to, for the longest time, bathrooms. And it still is a hot topic. Do you have your bathrooms open? So, or what are you using for cleaning? Or do you have enough PPE or this or that and the other, So we have those meetings normally in the fall, and I was planning on attending the annual New England Library Association conference that was supposed to be in Manchester, New Hampshire. Obviously, that didn't happen. So we're doing it virtually every other week. So I've attended 2 of those. I've been there for the guest speaker for the day, as well as attended a program or a seminar. Again, that's another good time of I see people that I only see during conferences from, Rhode Island or to Maine or New Hampshire. So it's a good time to kind of get together and see how everyone is doing during this time. That's about it. There's been a lot of Zoom meetings, just preparing for the library to be open, and so far so good.
It's good you have those weekly directors meetings, a good support structure. Glad you're staying involved in that. That's important. You have that outlet, back and forth. So glad to hear that's a regular part of your schedule. Any questions for Manny on the director's report? Kevin.
Manny, just checking in on, one of the things that you said there that teases out, you talked about people complaining or having discussions internally among the directors about mask wearing versus anti-mask wearers, or the bathrooms being, opened or not open, as those being challenges. What are you seeing over the summer with the reopening? Are you seeing a lot of anti-mask sentiment? Are you seeing a lot of, is there anything you're getting in terms of feedback from patrons that is different than what you anticipated?
No, we have been very fortunate here. We have not had any sort of confrontation when it comes to a mask. Other communities in Massachusetts, unfortunately, have, and authorities had to get involved. Bathrooms, we do have patrons come in, they'll ask, can I use the bathroom? Our bathrooms have been open, and they should be open. If we're open, our facilities are open. We have a routine cleaning schedule that we go every 2 hours just to make sure everything's clean. I have it's a gun basically that shoots out, it smells like chlorine, but I'll go around, the cleaning crew does it as well, and clean all the handles, the railings, the monitors, not the monitors, the keyboards, mouse. I do that. We've been very lucky, Kevin. We really have. And but unfortunately, there have been communities where they've had to face confrontations.
Sure.
And again, authorities had to get involved.
And you haven't had any issues with the, sort of monitor, the patron counter sort of stuff that's been taking place?
Yeah, no, we have even come close to reaching capacity.
Right.
I mean, the most we've had, and we've been open, I think, 7 weeks now. The highest total we had in the building was 28. And other libraries are having the same issue. I actually spoke to Sal, the director from Walpole today, because he was asking me a few things. And they're having the same thing. It's not busy. I spoke to Randy over in Middleborough, same thing. Richard's Library in North Attleboro, now Norfolk. Easton hasn't been busy. And when patrons come in, they're in for about 5-10 minutes. They grab what they want and then they're out the door. So, and we still have a few patrons that prefer the curbside, which is fine. I just want patrons to be safe and get get materials. So.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Manny, are you finding the numbers of people the volume for online books still really high?
Yes, actually, I actually just got our statistics, the monthly statistics, which obviously it's going to be way off from last year, but we were actually in first for circulation for everything. That's first time we've ever been first. Usually it's like Dartmouth or Seekonk, but we were ahead of all of them. But when it comes to like Overdrive, that's been crazy. Canopy, the same thing. Patrons have been using those resources, which is great. That's what they're there for.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Well, that could have some impact if some people have converted over to Overdrive, whereas before they would go into the library. So maybe that's part of the thing. So. Yeah,
same thing with Hoopla. I've had a few patrons reach out to me, and Hoopla is like their Netflix. They get, I think it's Doc Martin on there. They have movies, and they'll use their 5 borrows a month and get their Hoopla fix for the month. So,
Manny, kudos to you for leaning into technology, more than a year ago, and really pushing the envelope with what the library's been doing. Not foreseeing, a global pandemic, but
Yeah.
I think being ahead of the curve on the technology has suited us well.
And speaking of technology, I do want to give Kathy Belharney credit too. She was able to install, where is it now? Google Remote Desktop. So that helps who's ever at the reference desk. If a patron has a question and they're on the computer, they can essentially talk to them on the whichever computer that they're using. So that was another thing. And other libraries have been using that as well, just to keep that social distancing going.
Excellent. Any questions for Manny on the director's report? All righty, moving on. Thanks, Manny.
Thank you.
Liaison reports and subcommittees. I don't believe there's been activity over the summer months. We talked in the, I guess, early summer, early summer, about reconstituting, but waiting till we had our new trustee on board, and we'll talk about that later in the meeting. I don't believe there's any near-term activity on subcommittees or liaisons that requires us to focus today, but I could be missing something. Nope. Okay. Good. So we'll move on to old business. Manny.
Okay, so the first thing is just an announcement that in our October meeting, we will have representatives from Bartholomew attending, just to give an update on the trust funds. So Michelle Newcomb will be attending the meeting. And I want to thank,
go ahead, please.
Oh, I just want to thank Pam because she was able to set that up, and Deb too.
Excellent. Are we, sorry, this is a bit of a sidebar here, but are we thinking that the October meeting will be in person or on Zoom again? Or to be determined? We'll give it a few more weeks.
Yeah, I think if we have it in person, obviously our community room is full of books and furniture. It would have to be held in our reading room. But if the board feels comfortable doing it via Zoom for another month, I'm fine with either one. I'm here in the library, or either virtually or in person.
Any preferences from the board one way or the other? I think this has been efficient, but not that I'm not eager to see everyone, because I am, but just minding safety and
yeah,
all right with that?
From my perspective, I would prefer it given the unknown, right? We don't know what, I mean, kids will be going back to school next week in some format. And, they're actually hosting a live town hall on that now for the Foxboro school program. And hopefully that is without event, but you could, it could be much ado about nothing, or you could just as easily be talking about a full remote scenario, not that long after the October meeting. So it seems to me like this, it makes sense to do this for at least another month and see what's going on.
Yeah, that might make it easier for Michelle too, coming from Bartholomew.
Sure.
So that makes it easier on her too.
Okay. Any objections to that before we close that off? All right, great. Sorry, I didn't mean to pull us down that path, but I think it's relevant for Michelle, to your point, Deb. Changes her world a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Board vacancy is next. We talked a bit this spring and decided to wait until after the summer months, and so we need to resume that process. Really looking for input from the board on how we want to approach this. Kevin, you've been through more board everything than the rest of us. As the dean of the board, I'm going to use every chance I get. Can you give us some thoughts and perspective on how we might consider, and then certainly everyone on the board, but I'd start with Kevin, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. So my where we don't have an incumbent single candidate that is stepping into that role like Christine did, there is a form, as I think we've talked about in the spring. There is a form in the back of the annual report, the town's annual report, that invites civic engagement. And that form, anybody in the town can fill it out and say, listen, I'm interested in the library board, the zoning board, being the Hargreave, as Jeff Lovely liked to reference. So, whatever that board is, or whatever that vacancy is, when there is a vacancy, those forms typically get placed on file either with Town Hall or with Frank Spillane as the moderator, and they can be filed in both places. So it would behoove us to check in and see if anybody has filed any forms under library board, with Town Hall or Frank, but probably Town Hall, because I think that's the path of least resistance. I know Deb had somebody that was interested in it at that time, and we got a couple of other calls from folks who were interested as well. It would be my recommendation that they should all fill out that form, because that's sort of your initial show of interest and your application, if you will, where you can lay out your bona fides. Once we've had the chance to review that stack, and we could set a date and say that we're going to coordinate with Town Hall, but plan to review all on file by the October meeting, if you will. And then take those, because we have to request a meeting with the Board of Selectmen after we have the candidate pool, and have a discussion about who we think the appropriate candidate is, because it's a joint meeting and a joint vote. And to be clear, with that joint vote, the selectmen having 5 members mean that we would, well, it's not an issue here. It is an issue here. We would only be able to have 4 votes in attendance. They get the deciding vote.
From a process standpoint, it makes total sense in terms of communicating with town and getting interested individuals to complete that paperwork if they haven't done so already. Because as you mentioned, we've had a couple individuals who have stepped forward and had some conversations with board members, including myself. Is there then an interview process of some sort? I'm trying to recall when Christine stepped forward, she was the one superb candidate who stepped forward, so it was easy for
there
a whole
could
bunch
be
of
only
reasons.
one. Yes,
there could be only one.
So
help me understand
there isn't a formalized interview process per se, Colin. Certainly it would be in the best interests of the board to have the chair or, the executive committee meet with interested candidates to the extent possible, to get a sense of their background and their interest. And the Board of Selectmen is going to ask us for a recommendation. But there is nothing that would preclude the Board of Selectmen from having a candidate and the Board of Trustees from having a candidate. In which case the interview really should be, as it is, should really be before the joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Trustees. Because ultimately that's where the 9 voting members are going to make the determination as to who the candidate should be. Now, there may only be one, as there was with Christine, or there may be 6, and neither the trustees nor the Board of Selectmen may want to interview 6. We may say, we're bringing forward a couple of candidates for consideration based on backgrounds, qualifications, et cetera. But that's something that should be decided in joint fashion between the trustees and the selectmen as to what that process is going forward. Certainly, to the extent that people are interested in the position, I would expect, assume, and hope that they would be reaching out to the various board members, namely you, Colin, as the chair, to have that sort of conversation, that they would be reaching out to Manny to find out more about it if they don't know who, or Janice, if they don't know who we are. And that they're, at least doing that initial outreach that way. But as far as a formal interview process, there isn't really a protocol that requires us to do that outside of that Board of Selectmen presentation.
So should we I'd like to see, set some sort of protocol, because at the end of the day, we need to, and most likely bring forward an individual or a small number of individuals for the Board of Selectmen to consider with us in that joint meeting, right? So there is some sort of vetting process, whether it's one person meeting all of them, a small group of us meeting with all of them, or each of us saying, hey, I like this person and this person, bring those together. So I want to get on the same page with the board of how we want to do that. Strong feelings one way or the other?
I mean, so with the acknowledgement that anybody who is going to run for this, is going to seek to fill this vacancy is going to have to run again in the spring to be voted by the town. It would be my preference, I think, and you have to deal with quorum issues when you're doing interviews. So you'd either have to notice it as a special meeting of the board, which may inhibit certain people from wanting to go down that path for whatever reason. Be my recommendation that you just have folks who are interested have a conversation with the chair.
And that would, what that would prevent, though, is any other board members from actually having conversations. Other than to review the applications. That's right. Yeah. I mean, you could certainly circulate any. I mean, I think we have to do two things in addition to the process you're asking about that we would do here. One is we need to notify the Board of Selectmen that we're looking to come to them for a joint meeting, likely in October, so that they can plan that around whatever their other obligations are for the purposes of filling that vacancy, because that'll have to be noticed as a joint meeting. And two, we have to set a deadline by which we want those receipt of any shows of interest from town hall. I mean, I guess one thing that could happen now is, Manny, we could ask you and Pam to reach out to Christina or anybody else over at town hall to find out whether or not there are any forms currently available. That may obviate the need to set a deadline. Or it may require us to call Jeff Peterson and see if he'll put an article in the paper about the need for a show of interest. But absent that, with respect to the couple of folks that I think we have heard in one-off fashion from about interest, not knowing who that universe is myself, I would think that it's probably not more than a handful. And if it is 2 or 3 or 4, that it probably would make sense to have make sense to have Colin, you talk to them and then talk to us about them to get buy-in. Why don't we do that? If you can reach out to town hall and see if any individuals have stepped forward and completed the form.
I can do
showing
that.
interest. We will circle back to those who we've had conversations with to resume that discussion. Then from a vetting process standpoint, would any members of the board have interest in doing a joint conference call? So one other individual and myself. So we have two individuals talking with you. I'm happy to do it solo, but Deb?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we will coordinate.
I think there's probably a few of us who'd be happy to do that. You take whoever you want to do it with. I think I think that makes sense. And it makes sense with Deb as the vice chair to do that with you as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to do that.
Super. Okay. So we have our next steps here as a board on this process. Do we think it's doable to complete this before the October meeting? To me, it's feeling a little bit tight. Not wanting to kick this down another month, but I'm just wondering if it's too tight. Christine?
I agree. I think it's a little tight. So I don't know. I know I'd hate to push it again, but I'm just thinking November might be more realistic. I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
I think it's hard to tell until you know what your candidate pool looks like.
True. Yeah.
I mean, if you have one,
right,
then that may not be so hard to do.
True. Yeah. As long as we have, it'd be nice if we did have either one or, like you said, a small group.
Yeah. So why don't we do this? Why don't we see what Manny's able to find out from town hall? We'll engage the individuals who we have conversations with this spring, and then I'll set a deadline based on what we see there. And we feel like it's going to take more time to talk to multiple individuals, we'll kick it back, but with the goal of doing this as soon as we can, hopefully for the October meeting. Excellent.
Okay.
I would just suggest, I agree, you probably won't have a new trustee in place for the October meeting, right?
No,
like that time frame won't
No.
work. But yeah, okay. Just to make sure we're talking about the same thing. Gotcha.
Yeah. Good. Any other comments, suggestions, questions on this process? All right, we got a plan. All right, next, Manny, retirement of the Children's Services Librarian.
Yes. So I mentioned before, Margie's last day will be September the 24th. And with that, we're on the search or the hunt for Margie's replacement. And as of today, the job posting has been posted on the websites of the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, the Office of Library Services in Rhode Island, the New England Library Association website and the sales website, as well as the Town of Foxboro website. 99.9% of the candidates that meet our criteria will probably go to either the MBLC or the Rhode Island, because those are librarians looking for librarian jobs. So with that, because I want this done correctly and I want it to be a group effort, I have Kathy Belharney that will be part of the committee. She's basically the adult services, senior adult services librarian. She's basically the supervisor of adult services. So she'll be part of the team. And I would like a member of the trustees to be also part of the hiring committee. Now I can tell you this, I think we're gonna get a lot of candidates. I've already looked, today it was posted around 10 o'clock this morning, and I already have 4 candidates already. So I think we're gonna see a lot. The Milford Public Library is looking for a youth services librarian over there, very similar to the position here. And they have 38 already, and they still have another week. So I think the first few rounds are going to be all via Zoom or phone. I think once we get to the nitty gritty, when we, maybe the final 4 or whatever, I think at that point we'd have, that round of candidates come to the library, get a tour of the children's room, the young adult room, and also meet the staff in the children's area. Seeing that candidate would be working very closely to the library staff in the children's area. So tonight I'm just asking if a member of the board would like to be part of the hiring committee. Like I said, the first couple of rounds will probably be all Zoom and phone. And I'll be able to electronically send all the candidates, and we can have like a Zoom meeting where we kind of go over everything beforehand, get a game plan, what the board expects with this new the new hire, as well as what I expect and what Kathy Belharney expects as well. So that's my request for this night.
Is anyone interested in participating in the interview process?
Did we put on the to-do list the subcommittees, and personnel was one of those subcommittees?
Yeah,
we left that sort of open-ended at the moment.
Yeah, so right now on the subcommittee is only Colin.
Oh.
Tom was on there, and so.
So you're saying we should put Tom on it? That's what I heard.
Last agenda item.
I'll
if you're
text
watching.
him. That's great.
Would I'd like if maybe another trustee could step up and participate in the process, just to share some of the responsibility around. Is there anyone who is interested specifically in participating in this important process? Christine? Excellent.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
Anything else, Manny, on the retirement process and hiring process?
So I've been working on questions and working with directors that are going through it as well. We're sharing ideas, sharing questions. Also a member of the HR from town, most likely Mike Johns, will be part of the process there. He usually serves as the guidance and to answer any questions that we may have. So at this point right now, Christine, we'll be getting the resumes in, and we can kind of have a pre-meeting, kind of go over our strategy and work on questions. Usually the first round is like 5 questions. It's really basic, and then you start. Depends on how many candidates. I mean, Milford having 38, and apparently quite a number of them are qualified, so there may be 3 or 4 rounds. So, we don't want to settle for, Margie has a legacy, and whoever we hire, we want them to create their own legacy. So we'll take our time and we'll do it right. And I know we will. This is going to be a great committee. We have the best intentions.
Okay.
Just a quick question. Is there a timeline that you'd like to have someone actually in the position by? Is there any, I was just curious.
I mean, I would like to have someone before the end of the calendar year.
Okay.
But then we take into consideration whoever the chosen one is, maybe they have to give a month for wherever their municipality. I would like to, before the end of the year, have someone in place. But if it takes a little longer, it takes a little longer. We'll make sure it's right.
Right. I agree.
And if we don't like any of the candidates, we'll just start again. We don't want to just throw someone in there just to have a body in there. So,
Yep.
But I'm fairly confident we're going to have some heavy hitters, with some good experience. So
Important shoes to fill.
Mm.
Other questions in the process? Before we move off of this topic, I just wanted to take a moment as part of this meeting record to acknowledge Margie's contributions. I had the opportunity to join the Friends meeting last week, and Margie was part of the meeting, of course, and I had the chance to share some thoughts with Margie, as did all the Friends. It was really nice chance to have each of the Friends be able to share a couple thoughts directly to Margie. But just want to acknowledge as part of this meeting publicly the tremendous contribution Margie's made to this town, and hundreds, if not thousands, of readers over 3 decades. And just what a tremendous impact she's had. And the gratitude that this board, this library and community has for her work in shaping so many lives. She will be greatly missed. Like you said, Manny, a legacy is what she has left. And we will look forward, though, to her successor coming in and giving all of themselves in the role. But just thank you, Margie, if you are watching, for all you've done for this library and for this town and all the children here. So thank you. Okay. Next on our agenda, quite a switch of topics from thanking Margie to coronavirus, but there's no smooth segues here.
So like I said before, we've been open for, I believe it's been 7 weeks, and maybe 8, but I think it's 7. And so far, so good. Everything has been running really smooth. Staff have felt safe. Our patrons have felt safe. So I think we're ready to go to, I hate to use the next phase, but let's say the next step. So I'm requesting a few items. I said I only had 1 request before, but I have a few more coming. So one of them is to expand our library hours of operation. And I'm looking at specifically Saturdays, opening up on Saturdays from 10 to 5. And I would like to do that the week that school begins, which I believe is next Monday, the 14th. Because right now we're only open till 5 o'clock, and there are several school libraries that are not going to be open, and they are telling, or they will tell the parents and tell the students to pick up their materials at the library, and they may not be able to get to the library Monday through Monday through Friday. So I think opening up on Saturday would be beneficial. I have spoken with staff because I wanted to get their blessing. They're fine with it. Kathy Belharney has already worked out if approved, a schedule for Saturdays. It's basically what staff would be working normally. But I mean, if things get really bad, obviously we can always retreat. We can always go back. But I think we're ready, and I'm recommending that we inch a little closer to our normal hours of operation. I'm trying to just go a little slowly, month by month, and if need be, we'll go back. So that's one of the requests I have under COVID-19 is to have the library open to our patrons Saturdays from 10 to 5. And that would be our normal hours anyway on Saturdays.
Any questions for Manny? I have a couple thoughts, but no. I mean, it makes sense, Manny, in terms of we've seen a reduced volume of patrons, making this a manageable phase, but having the hours, there's more availability for that reduced patron count. So that makes sense. No questions or discussion. We did Janet.
There we go. I was just wondering if you've thought, and maybe this will be the next phase, but even some people are working, so they can't get to the library from 10 to 5. And as an alternative to even have just one night a week, and even if you start, instead of opening that day at 10, if you started that, do the same number of hours, just get it like 10 to 7 or something like that instead of, 12 to 7 instead of 10 to 5.
Yeah. My plan, little spoiler, my plan for October, if everything goes well, is having opening up 2 evenings, till 8 o'clock Monday and Wednesday. I just want to go kind of slow because also losing Margie, we also lose an employee, and I just don't want to go through the sub budget, because we're going to need that budget near the end of the fiscal year as well. But yeah, that is coming. I just, I thought this would be the first step. Saturdays next month, 2 nights, and then keep on going till we get back to our normal hours of operation. But yeah.
Thank you.
Good recommendation and a good plan, Manny, to phase our way into that. Great. Do we have a motion to approve the amended hours? Motion by Mr. Penders, second by Catherine. Any discussion? All in favor? Everybody. 5. Okay. There's request 1.
So the second request deals with our door monitors. So currently we have a staff member, I do it an hour a day, sit at the door, just counting patrons coming in, making sure everyone wears a mask. And like I said, it hasn't been busy. So there have been times where we have staff just sitting there. I mean, they'll bring some work, but they could be in their office, or they could be in their area, or I could be in my office working on something. And this was actually brought up to me because staff has seen, especially circulation desks, where it's not that busy. So instead of the door monitor, my plan would be every hour at the top of the hour, staff would basically do a sweep of the floor and count the number of patrons in the building. So someone in children's would count, and we'd have a point person. It might be Kathy Belharney, maybe someone at circulation, maybe me. And every hour we get, okay, there are 16 people in the building. Next hour, okay, there's 18 people. So we could do that. And circulation, they've told me they have a good judge when, if there's going to be a big barrage of, a free-for-all coming in, a bunch of patrons coming in. And they also make sure everyone's been wearing their masks. So that would be my request. My other request when it comes to COVID is to eliminate the door monitor. But if it does get busy, or if it does get hectic again, because maybe Saturdays might be very busy. Maybe we go back to the door monitor just on Saturdays. But we'll see. So that's my other request. If it's okay by the board, and I wanted to be very transparent with this, that we eliminate the door monitor and we do an hour by hour sweep of the facility.
Man, you've been managing this for weeks now and have a good sense of what the flow is and what the needs are. So from my individual perspective, I don't have any concerns. I think the way you want to approach it sounds good to me. Other feedback from the board?
I will admit I am resistant to the idea of just relying on an hourly count to know what's in the building on a regular basis. And I can appreciate that circulation can add and can get a sense of if there's a massive flow of people coming in, but I don't think that the social distancing guidelines are based on hourly rates. I think they're based on actual counts. And so I would not vote for that.
I guess another reason why I'm looking at it is for the taxpayers. I would rather see me doing actual work, maybe in my office or somewhere in a building, than just sitting at that table, just counting. We have 12 in, we have 11. Okay, 2 left, down to 9, 3, 12. Having that and seeing other staff there, sitting there.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. That was my.
The building is Wi-Fi enabled. I think that a lot of the work that can be done in different places in remote access. It's not, and there are things that folks that have typically worked on CERC or in reference are doing when I go in there. That is part of their more core business than just counting heads. It's still. From a taxpayer perspective, as a taxpayer, I would prefer to know that there's somebody at that door making sure that the counts are accurate. And if that costs more as a result of that, that doesn't offend me right now.
Okay. Janet?
I just was curious, you're talking about the guidance from the state, but what is the maximum that the state was allowing? Was it 40%?
So the governor came out. Kevin, you might be able to help me with this. I think it was like mid-August. He kind of changed his tune a little.
He rolled it back.
Yeah. And they couldn't be. That's where I think the gathering of no more than 25 came from. So I think that was like mid to late August. So we scaled it back because originally we were going to have, I think it was 70, which would have been 20%. So we scaled it back to 50 to meet with the governor's, what he came out with. And we usually have about 11 to 12 staff. So we were looking at between 38 and 39 patrons in the building. So we did have to go back because like I said, the governor changed his tune. It was like sometime mid-August.
Yeah, no, it definitely was in mid-August, and it was in reaction to a series of functions that were being held out in public. There was a football clinic that was deemed an illegal football clinic. There were other things that were taking place that were just mass gatherings. And so based on that, he did reduce the social gathering size to 25. I don't know, Manny, because I haven't been following it from a Mass Board of Library Commissioners perspective, whether or not the announcement that he made had any prolonged effect on how many people can be in the library. I mean, I think that's a real important distinction there. Because if he's saying that gatherings of 25 people are the maximum, the library needs to be held to a different standard to make sure that it's in compliance. Otherwise, you can only have 25 people in the building.
So the library's interpretation, and this was one of the questions during the director's meeting, was if a group of 25 or if we had 25 people in the children's room, then that would be, or 25 in near the reading area.
Yeah, I think
that's what they were interpreting. Yeah,
I think there's a difference between occupancy and gathering, but I think that's the thing that, for the library's purposes, you ultimately don't want my guidance on. You want the Mass Board of Library Commissioners' guidance on.
Yeah, that's where their perspective came from. And yeah.
Deb, you had a comment also.
Oh, I was along the same lines. I was curious about what are the levels of occupancy at currently. So what is it again?
So right now,
Can you clarify?
including staff, would be 50.
All right.
And the governor, and I could find it, but and Kevin is correct. It was because there was a football clinic and there was like a house party or something where there was cameras showing of people, just too many people in one area, and the governor put his foot down. Mm-hmm. So then we kind of scaled it back as well, and the MBLC was aware of that as well because they've been working with the reopening task force, and
Yep.
So that's where we came with that number.
There was an
Majority
uptick in positive rates.
What's that now?
There was an uptick in positive rates.
That's
it was
right.
like 2 point something. It was like at 1, and then it went up, and then they rolled it back a bit.
Yeah, I think that's when they had the maps, and it had the areas, and they had different colors. I think my city was in a red for a while, but now it's in a yellow, and there's green and all different colors.
So there's room for about 40 patrons. Is there about 10 staff-ish in a regular day?
On a regular day, 11 to 12, so 38, 39 patrons in the building. Now, if we're open on Saturdays, so the staff on Friday will be kind of split. So we'll be able to have, up to 40, 41, 42 patrons in the building on Friday and Saturday. I don't see it happening on Friday. Fridays are very quiet. Maybe Saturday. I'd be curious with the Saturday crowd.
Another thought I had is, what about the pages? Could that become a task they take over just for the time being?
So we only have 2 pages right now. 2 of them did graduate, and there still is a hiring freeze in town. I was able to get Margie's position up and running because that is a vital position here at the library. So we have 1 page for children's and we have 1 for adult. And when they're here, they're just shelving all the materials. They're emptying the book drop. We got the books in quarantine. When after 3 days they come out, and so they've been doing that. So they've been very busy.
Okay.
Any other feedback for Manny on the suggested adjustments to the policy? Some more thoughts. I think Kevin raises some good points. Even though our trend has been consistently below that mark, that we have a responsibility to ensure that we stay below that mark. And appreciate, Manny, your being conscious of how we're spending time and dollars and resources from what may seem like a task in terms of counting the occupancy, that we haven't pushed that limit. But I think to Kevin's point, or what I'm inferring from his point, is it's our responsibility to make sure that we don't cross that and have to adjust backwards from that. So I'd be supportive of what I think Kevin has said, to keep our current process in place for now. I think especially as we start opening up schools, everyone doing our part to be sure we keep this under containment. So I'd be in favor of what Kevin suggested, keep things as they are for now. Christine?
Can I ask a question? How long is that when you do monitor that? How long is your shift, say, at the monitor desk? Like, is it an hour? Is it 2 hours?
Yeah, we usually try to do staff 1 hour. Like usually I'm 2 to 3, Monday through Friday normally. So we had actually Bob Rossetti was volunteering doing the morning shift, but now he's back at school. We've had a sub a few times where they've sat at the door as well, and maybe that's something that we explore. If we can't have staff at the door, Yeah, and I understand. I do understand where Kevin's coming from. I was just, I was trying. So
I applaud making the building as useful as possible and taking some of that burden off of staff and yourself. And I get it. I just, in addition to the sort of, show of knowledge, I think it's also really important for tracing, regardless of whatever is happening in that building, that we know where things are, so that when a question does come up, in the event that there is some sort of a instance, that we are, that we have as much data as possible, rather than going, when we rounded, this is what it was. And I think that I think we have an obligation to the town, even though the numbers are low, to make sure that our numbers are buttoned up.
Great. Okay. Anything else on coronavirus and operations? Anything else, Manny, you want to share? Questions from the board?
So Deb's been in, and I know Christine's been in, and they've seen the shields. Kevin, I think, has been in too. You've seen the shields. We got the hand sanitizer. Now we got the, right when you walk in, we got the battery operated hand sanitizer, big thing from sales. So we're doing well. We have a lot of supplies. We're still buying some. So we, heaven help us, we get a second wave and everything, can't find toilet paper anymore or something like that. So we've been stocking up. And so I do have something else that's unrelated to coronavirus, but if you have any other, if the board has any other questions about coronavirus, please feel free to ask me.
Just comment again, Manny. Appreciate the work that you and the team are doing. This is all new territory.
Yes.
No easy answers on this, and appreciate you examining from every angle and doing your best for the community.
Well, it's been a team effort. I got to give it up to the staff here. We've all been, working together as a unit. We've all been on the same page. Hasn't anyone's gone rogue at all, because we're all in this, as they say, we're all in this together. Make sure everyone's safe. But one thing I did want to mention that I neglected to mention during my director's report was the Trustee Binder. I did mention that before. It's complete. We've completed it. And I got to thank Deb and I got to thank Pam for getting the binder together. I was able to scan everything. So my question to the board is, would you like a physical copy, or, because it's ginormous, we will have flash drives with the Trustee Binder, just so you can look at it. Or if you want to come in and pick one up, we have them.
Have you already made the hard copies?
We have, yeah.
Okay.
But we have flash drives too. We have, I think, four hard copies. I think it's like 200 pages or something, right?
So
205 pages.
So who wants a hard copy? Yeah, right. You can't sell them on eBay.
Hey, I stood at that copier for 3 hours. Somebody go get a hard copy.
And the toner went.
It.
There it is, right here. So
Yeah,
this was.
Oh.
This was Pam. This was Karen Dugan, Suzanne. This was not me. I'm definitely not. It would have been like that. That's all it would have had, because I'm not creative. But we have the tabs. We have everything. So I think, Christine, you were coming by tomorrow, so we'll have a hard copy ready for you.
I'll be in on Thursday.
Okay.
I'd love to check
All right. And if there's something we're missing, we can certainly add it. But yeah, 205 pages.
I will gladly take a jump drive.
Thank you for the work on that, Deb and Pam. Huge task.
We didn't make one for you, Kevin.
That's perfect.
We made enough for everyone, but
well, except for the poor new trustee who's going to show up without a handbook.
Yeah, we got one for them.
That's
excellent. All right. Anything else in old business, Manny? Okay. We already had the discussion and voted to approve the amended hours, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Double checking. All right. New business.
So one item under new business, last request of the evening. We need our security software updated. The old security software was not working on, we all have Windows 10 now, and we need to update. So, and I found this out when I had my new computer installed, and I couldn't get all the features from the security camera. And so I had the technician come out, and they said, well, that's because now you have Windows 10, and now we have to update all this software that was installed 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I did attach the cost of the system upgrade, the renewal, all the troubleshooting. That also includes if they do have to come out, the trip charge is waived. So I was requesting that the money comes out of the Boyden Library Beyond Books Fund, so we can get that. We need it back on the reference desk because it's not on there right now because Tim has a new computer, so we need to update that, and then one on the ground floor. So if approved, I can contact them tomorrow. I'll get someone out here immediately.
Great.
Questions, Kevin?
So I guess it's my job to be the skunk at the garden party tonight, so I'll do that. Isn't this the type of expenditure that we would normally go in front of town meeting for as a software upgrade? Why would we be taking this out of Beyond Books but for the fact that we're in a COVID situation rather than making that expenditure as something that we would ask for in our annual budget?
We could have done that. I don't think there's going to be a special town meeting until December of January right now. But normally we could have did this. We could have did this under some sort of capital improvement. So with the Beyond Books Fund, I know that's supposed to be for upgrades to the library. So I was thinking it could come out of that. It could always come out of state aid as well, because that can be for capital.
And I'm not sure that my objection, and I'm not sure that I'm objecting either, but I'm really asking the question, right? I don't want us to get in the habit of funding library needs that would be typical operational needs out of Beyond Books because it's more accessible. That's not what Beyond Books is for. At least it's not what it was originally designed for. So if we have an urgent need to do that funding now, and we have no other means by which to do it, I can appreciate the distinction there. But I think that for capital, and it's not capital, it's not a building, but for budgeting purposes, if this is something that should be in our annual budget to town, this is not something we should be replacing with Beyond Books. Lightly, let me rephrase that, lightly. And that's something I think that we as a board need to be of a mind to do. The other expenditures we have done from Beyond Books to date have been for improvements rather than asking the town for money for things that would be replacement value or for technology, not upgrades, but for improvements, additions. Funding Sunday hours initially was a vote that was made by the board to do out of Beyond Books. So obviously donations and costs associated with the Spinny series in the past have been fronted at a minimum by Beyond Books because it's things that are outside the normal scope of the building's operations. So if that's what we want Beyond Books to be, we have to really scrutinize each one of these expenditures when the time comes for us to do them.
In a normal year, this would have went to a town meeting. This all happened all at once when my computer went kaput and I got the new computer and then I couldn't access all the software when it comes to the security camera. So it all kind of fell into place this past summer.
Sure.
So yeah, just kind of, I mean, I could always use state aid,
But if we do it here, then the discussion becomes, why can't we do it for the next thing and the next thing and the thing after that, right? And I'm not saying that's your argument. I'm saying that will be somebody else's argument. And so we will have eroded the value of what the Beyond Books donations from private citizens were and what their vision of it was when they made those donations to us. Because typical O&M is not what they were anticipating we'd spend it on. So I agree with you. If it was a different year, if this was something that could be a planned replacement, if this was something that didn't need to be done today, and if there was a special town meeting in the fall, my recommendation would be absolutely we should vote it down. But I think we all need to, as the fiduciaries to that trust now, we all need to be very clear with what we are spending money on and what we are unwilling to spend money on going forward.
Comments? I think that makes sense. Minding what the intent of that fund was designed for. So, Manny, you said this could be put under state aid.
Yes, and we have the money. We have a little over $39,000 in state aid right now. So that $3,000 could easily be absorbed.
Okay. If there's not a reason not to put it in state aid, if the dollars are there, I think that's probably, again, my individual perspective, the best path. To Kevin's point, it becomes a slippery slope in terms of what those dollars are used for, and our responsibility to mind that. What do others think, though? Catherine, Deb, Christine?
When did the state aid replenish? Was that a July?
So we get 2 checks a year, and we get one in December, and then we get one in usually the spring.
Okay.
Obviously, this coming year, our state aid is going to be much lower coming in,
Right.
And that's, that is what it is. What the times we're in now. But you usually get 2 checks, and it's for capital improvements.
Okay.
I agree with Kevin, just because I agree with the slippery slope. And if you start like taking a little bit, then all of a sudden, we're taking money from the wrong bucket.
Okay.
Yeah.
Christine, do you agree?
I agree, but I disagree. I just think this is a unique situation. I can appreciate where everyone's coming from, that once right, it's a slippery slope, but I think given the situation we're in, this is all money from private citizens, just for my clarification. Is this?
So if I may, Beyond Books was created when we were doing the renovation. Okay. And the trust fund was established for donations from private citizens because we made the obligation to the town that we would go out and raise, the trustees would go out as part of the renovation package, would go out and raise $500,000 of private funds to offset some of the costs associated with the town's portion of the renovation project. We raised close to $1 million based on that. And so this Beyond Books fund is the residue of that account, the residue of that effort. And I'm assuming that in the trustee handbook, you will see the language, and I know we've circulated at prior meetings. Manny goes, "Oh yes." I know we've circulated that trust language at prior meetings, but to paraphrase it, and so someone else can take issue with this if I do it disservice, but the premise to Beyond Books was to be there as a resource beyond what we would typically ask the town for aid on and funding on. It's for, we know that some of the construction, for example, the furnishings in the children's room, when we did the children's room, were way above budget. Right. And came in way above cost. We paid the difference through Beyond Books. If a chair breaks in the children's room, or if a table breaks, there's wear and tear on some of the things that obviously we're going to want to match those items and replace them rather than just getting a fold-out table at Costco and putting it in its place. The Beyond Books Fund is premised that we don't have to go back to the town to make the library look like the library. And that if there are technological advancements, TV screens, some of the web, information that's out there, that we would be able to move the library forward in a manner that was not that was forward thinking, but was not necessarily something that had to be tied to the town budget. And other things. This is why we've done some of the expenditures for events, because we're not going to ask the town to fund our events.
Right.
So that's the premise behind Beyond Books. It was truly, let's raise money for things that will be beyond the book budget. That's where the name came from.
Okay. I think I'm focusing on that this is a security issue, right? Am I correct, Manny? That it's a security camera that.
Yeah, these are the cameras for outside the building and also in the children's room.
So that to me is safety is our, safety first is our top priority. So I just think, that has to, it's not something frivolous. It's security. So
Christine, I totally agree, but
Okay.
we have a security system, and that security system wasn't paid for by private donation, right? Like that's my point, right?
Okay.
If they're to go back to Colin's proposed resolution and suggestion to Manny here, there are other means by which to pay. I'm not saying that these aren't valid costs.
Right.
I'm just questioning whether or not this is the valid fund to draw them from.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. I guess what I'm focusing on is that it's a security. I can appreciate the security system wasn't funded, but this was an unforeseen charge, I guess, is what I'm saying. But if there is a state fund, I guess, but I just wanted to voice that I can see that sometimes you have to make exceptions. That's all I wanted to say.
Sure.
Can I ask a question? So is there no process now to request through the town for different buildings and organizations? If there's no special town meeting to be voted on, there's no more process to get things like this funded from the town? In other words, has Town Hall come up with an alternate way to request funding in this era?
This year is a very interesting year, along with a lot of other things that have happened in this year, because normally there would be a special town meeting in the fall. And I had a meeting today actually with the town manager, with other departments today, and he was expressing how we're not going to see a special town meeting until January. They're still waiting for guidance from the state. And normally there's a capital improvement list, essentially, new fire truck or new van for the Council on Aging, and something like this. If I knew we were going to have to update the software, this is something that I could request. The $3,200 to update the software. Then it's up to the capital improvement committee, along with FinCom and the selectmen get involved as well. Is this valid? And they vote to approve or disapprove, and then it goes on it goes as an article for town meeting, and then it gets voted on.
Okay.
But yeah, this was it was a weird circumstance how everything kind of just went downhill with my computer dying.
Okay.
Just on the budget question, this is it is entirely, Manny's right, it's entirely a trickle down, right? Normally what you would have is we'd go to town meeting in May, and then in July, the budget, or shortly thereafter, the budget for the state would go into effect, and local aid would be established, and state aid would be established for libraries, and all of those things would be known and measured and in place. There is no state fiscal year 2021 budget in place right now. In fact, the legislature has done a 3-month interim budget to get to October, with the plan that in October they'll be coming in to do a budget. They may or may not be able to do that. but that's their plan. So that's why there's no need for a special town meeting, unfortunately, because town hall doesn't have any other. Usually that, you get your July 1 data and your July 1 checks, and then you know where you have a surplus or where you have a need and where you could spend some additional monies that were allotted to you after you did your initial town meeting votes. Here, we won't have that in October and November because the legislature will still be dealing with the budget in October and possibly November.
Okay.
So that's the method to the madness to a special in, I guess, January instead.
All right. Well, I don't think we should wait until January, though. I feel comfortable taking it out of the state aid, Manny, but do you? Does this take away from other proposed purchases?
Oh, no. I mean, this doesn't hurt my feelings at all. Either one, state aid, that doesn't bother me.
Okay.
As long as it gets done,
Right. Yep.
But
Then
yeah,
I would-
no.
Then I would go for state aid.
Yeah,
just now.
we have money. We have plenty of money in state aid. So if we were really down, I would have been a little nervous, but no.
Okay.
So I think given the discussion, Manny, we heard a couple of different perspectives on this. I think the common theme has been this is an operating expense, comes from an operating budget category. So,
Yeah.
Given that, do you need approval from the board on taking from that?
It's under 5,000, so I don't, but I'm glad the transparency is there. So where the money is being spent, and
I appreciate that.
It's on Foxboro cable. So, citizens know where the money's being spent.
And I think, a good discussion in this meeting regarding beyond books and clarifying how we want to think about those different funding sources. So I think, again, productive discussion. Very good. Anything else in new business, Manny, that we should cover?
I'm good.
Any other topics overall as a board? Kevin?
I just wanted to take a minute, Colin, and just layer on your comments on Margie Rossetti. I think one of the things that's really important for all of us and for anybody who's watching to bear in mind that we know what Margie Rossetti has done for the development of children readers and for children engagement in libraries and in books and in media and creativity and making them think, and all that's critically important as like some of you who I have 3 kids who have grown up here using the library and taking advantage of the resources that Margie Rossetti and Mother Goose on the Loose and the Teddy Bear Picnic and everything else has been so important for our house and our family. But I think I don't want to underemphasize either, as much as all of that is important, and it definitely is. It's her body of work. The building that Manny is televising from right now would not be in the situation and the condition and in the renovated structure that it is without Margie Rossetti. Margie worked countless hours with Jerry Cirillo and with the contractors and with the members of the board and with the municipal planning committee. And, all of that, those unpaid, unrecognized, not unappreciated, but certainly underappreciated time that she has just given selflessly to the Boyden Library for 30 plus years, and it's just having gone through that process with her and having sort of inherited that process in that she was already well entrenched in. The library would not be where it is today for so many reasons, including just the nuts and bolts of the building itself, without Margie's leadership, participation, and selflessness. And I just want to make sure that we acknowledge both the spiritual, educational facets of her and just the unselfish facets that she gave us that is leading us to a building itself that is really just top class.
Thank you for sharing that, Kevin. Really well said.
And I refuse to admit that she's leaving with that. Still, right now.
We're going to bring her back as a volunteer. She's not going far.
I plan to apply for her position under the name Rossetti. Yeah.
All right. Anything else we want to cover before we wrap up today? I think it's a good note to end on for this evening. And thank you, Margie, for everything you've done. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Penders. Zygo Freeman, seconds. All in favor? Everybody. All right. Thank you, everyone. Be well, be safe.
Everybody, good night, Manny and the gang. I can't wait.